Hello and welcome to the Federal. The Supreme Court today granted interim bail to Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. This was the case registered against Mr. Kejriwal by the Enforcement Directorate in a prevention of money laundering case linked to the alleged Delhi excise policy scam. Mr. Kejriwal had been arrested in the case in the month of March, on the 10th of March, and he's been in jail ever since, barring a brief period of about 20 days when he was allowed to come out of jail on to campaign for his party during the Lok Sabha elections. Now, this does not mean that Mr. Kejriwal will come out of Tihar jail or prison immediately, because there is also a case against him in which he's been arrested by the CBI. This was done on the 26th of June. The CBI had arrested him while he was already under arrest and in jail in the ED case. The CBI case is also continuing concurrently. And so it's not that the Supreme Court's decision of today is going to immediately have Mr. Kejriwal step out of prison. Aam Aadmi Party, Mr. Kejriwal's lawyers have also challenged the CBI case, the arrest by the CBI, as well as the case by the CBI against Mr. Kejriwal in the Delhi High Court. Those cases are to be heard by the Delhi High Court on the 17th of July. So at least till the 17th of July, the Delhi Chief Minister will continue to be in prison. Whether he gets relief or not on the 17th of July, we'll have to wait and see. Mr. Kejriwal would be eagerly waiting for that hearing. If he does not get relief, naturally, he will have to appeal against whatever order the Delhi High Court passes in the Supreme Court. There are two other significant matters that the Supreme Court took up while hearing Mr. Kejriwal's interim bail application today. Mr. Kejriwal, while moving for bail, had also challenged the arrest per se by the Enforcement Directorate and argued, his counsel, Mr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, argued that the arrest itself was not required because it did not fit into the category of proportionality, whether Section 19 of the PMLA Act required arrest in the kind of case that was filed against Mr. Kejriwal. Their argument has continuously been that this is a fake case. It's a case of political vendetta against Mr. Kejriwal by the BJP government. It's a case of misuse of the investigating agency. And they had been arguing that the original complaint in the matter had been registered almost a year and a half back, and the ED waited for a year and a half before arresting Mr. Kejriwal. So why was there a need to arrest him in the first place? That particular question on whether the arrest itself was required, was legal, whether permission to the ED to arrest in such a case can be granted under Section 19, that is something that the Supreme Court today has not ruled out. They have referred that specific question to a larger bench. That bench will have to be constituted by the Chief Justice of India. He will then list that matter before a certain bench. So that particular question has to now be referred and answered by a larger bench. But there's also another important question. The bench today, the division bench led by Justice Sanjeev Khanna, has said that if the larger bench constituted to look into the question of arrest finds it appropriate, it can also look into whether in such a case an elected representative such as Mr. Kejriwal can continue to run his office as chief minister or, as a minister in the government. Remember, Mr. Arvind Kejriwal, ever since he has been arrested, has remained defiant. He has refused to resign as chief minister. He's running his government from Tihar jail. And, the Congress, which was in fact an ally of the Aam Aadmi Party during the Lok Sabha elections, as well as the BJP, have both been saying that this is improper, this is wrong, he should have resigned. There is no way a chief minister can run a government from behind jail. Just 2 months before Mr. Kejriwal was arrested by the ED, or a little over a month and a half before he was arrested, Mr. Hemant Soren, who was the Jharkhand chief minister, had also been arrested by the ED. Now, at that point in time, Moments before his arrest, Mr. Hemant Soren had stepped down as chief minister. He'd put in his resignation, and Mr. Champai Soren sworn in as the chief minister of Jharkhand. So the argument by Mr. Kejriwal's rivals has been that he too should have resigned. He should have left that chair for somebody else in the party and gone to prison. But Mr. Kejriwal has refused to do so. Today, the Supreme Court said whether Mr. Kejriwal resigns or continues to stay in jail and run his government, that's an important question, but it's a question that is not under the purview of the Supreme Court in the immediate case that was before it. And it said that we do not want to pass any strictures, any rules, any orders or directions in that matter. We leave it to Mr. Kejriwal to decide. But if the larger bench, which will hear the question of the arrest, finds it appropriate, then it can draw out rules of what an elected representative is required to do in such a case. So even that question, which has been baffling a lot of political experts, commentators, legal experts, will likely be answered by the larger bench of the Supreme Court if it, as the bench today said, deems appropriate. For now, he has received some relief from the Supreme Court, an interim bail. Whether he steps out of prison, whether he's out of jail, whether he's free on bail or not, is a question that will still remain unanswered at least till the 17th of July. Mr. Kejriwal's lawyer, senior advocate Abhishek Manu Singhvi, has already said that the arrest by the CBI, an insurance arrest, suggesting that the CBI and the central government felt ED case against Mr. Kejriwal was falling apart. They did not have the required evidence to have him convicted, to keep him in prison for any longer. And so, to prevent him from coming out of jail anytime soon, an additional arrest was made by the CBI in the same case, but under separate charges. And so, today, with the interim bail being granted, a lower court had also granted interim bail to Mr. Kejriwal last month. That was then stayed by the Delhi High Court, against which Mr. Kejriwal's lawyers had moved to Supreme Court. The lower court order, as well as today's Supreme Court order, both mention certain things which are not very comfortable for the ED with regard to how they have proceeded in the case, whether they were required to arrest Mr. Kejriwal or not, whether, after having served 90 days in jail, he still needed to continue to be in prison. All those questions have been raised. It's fairly certain that Mr. Kejriwal's lawyers will canvass the same arguments when the CBI matter is taken up for hearing on the 17th of July. So for now, all eyes would be on that hearing.